Hello, One Great Earth. There's a few stories that we're going to get through today. One has to do with Sri Lanka. Pull that up right now. Sri Lanka monsoon floods kill 14, schools shut. Flash floods, mudslides, and falling trees have killed at least 14 people in Sri Lanka as the island nation is battered by monsoon storms. Some drowned, including 3 members of the same family swept away in the capital Colombo on Sunday. Others were buried alive in mudslides, including an 11-year-old girl and a 20-year-old man, the Disaster Management Center DMC said. 9 other people were crushed and killed when trees fell on them in 7 districts since the monsoon intensified on May 21st. Falling trees, if you've never had a tree fall on your house before and have to deal with that, it is scary. But just to think that 9 people were crushed by trees, that's tragic. The DMC said 20 out of the country's 25 districts were affected by heavy rain and issued warnings to people living on the banks of main rivers to move to higher ground. Flights arriving at Colombo's main international airport were diverted to a smaller airport, and some key highways were flooded at several exits. This is more in theme with the main story that we're going to get into in a little bit with the Panama Island sea level rise causing evacuation. This is another story of sea level rise, flooding, constant living in flood zones. But what if you're not living in a flood zone and it's still rising? That's the story there. 14 killed, 9 of those by falling tree. Orange juice makers consider using alternative fruit as prices skyrocket. Now this is something else. This is from Fox LA. Fox 11, I think it is. Yeah. A global shortage of oranges that sent prices soaring has prompted some orange juice manufacturers to consider turning to alternative fruits to make the breakfast staple. Global prices for oranges hit $3.68 per pound in April, up about 33% from the $2.76 figure 1 year ago, according to International Monetary Fund data. That also marks a stunning 210% increase from January 2021, shortly before the inflation crisis began. There are 3 main factors driving the soaring price of orange juice, and it's drought, disease, and demand. The spike stems from declining output in Florida, which is the primary U.S. producer, and disease and extreme weather events in Brazil, which counts for 70% of global... What? That's something I did not know. There we go. Zoom in a little bit on that. The spike stems from declining output in Florida, which we know, which is the primary U.S. producer, and disease and extreme weather events in Brazil, which accounts for about 70% of global production. That is unreal. That is a number I did not know, especially coming out of Brazil, being 70% of global production of orange juice or oranges. That is a monstrous, huge number and a massive amount of monocrop utilization, which always ends in failure. Monocrops are always a bad idea. This disease will spread, and we'll get to the disease. The disease, along with several severe heat waves and drought that occurred during the pivotal phases of flowering and early fruit formation, have put Brazil on track to register one of its worst orange harvests in more than 3 decades. In fact, the Citrus Growers Organization forecast that the South American nation is set to produce 232.4 million boxes of oranges in the 2024 to 2025 season, a marked 25% decline when compared with the previous cycle. Should this production forecast hold true, this will be the second smallest crop since 1988 to 1989. On top of that, Florida has been hit by a series of hurricanes as well as greening disease, which is spread by a tiny insect called the Asian citrus psyllid. This is a crisis. We've never seen anything like it, even during the big freezes and big hurricanes. As a result, orange juice prices are also skyrocketing. A 12-ounce can of frozen orange juice concentrate soared to $4.25 in April, up 41% from just 1 year ago. In the past, orange juice makers have avoided long-term shortages by freezing juice stock, which can be reserved and used for up to 2 years. 2 years. This is not good for the orange juice market, especially. In the past, I'll read this one more time. In the past, orange juice makers have avoided long-term shortages by freezing orange juice stock, which can be reserved and used for up to 2 years, according to the Financial Times. However, even that frozen stock is dissipating because of a 3-year shortage buildup. So there's been a bubble, an orange juice bubble of supply. Doesn't matter if demand is always going to be there. But are people going to pay $10 for half a gallon of orange juice? Or they switch to concentrate if it's cheaper, be able to try to make your own. So frozen juice stock can be preserved and used up for 2 years. And they're saying there's a 3-year shortage buildup. That is not good. This is really, really interesting. So I wonder what, it doesn't mention what alternative fruit they'll use. You can call it orange juice or some other kind of juice. You have to start over. Starting over again. It's unlikely it'll be something that could truly replace the orange. But we've seen monocrops go extinct before, such as bananas over 100 years ago. The bananas we have are not the same bananas that people enjoyed decades ago. Same can be said about potatoes and tomatoes, since they're genetically altered, not, be poisonous. Especially potatoes. So potatoes can still kill. I'm getting way off topic, sorry. The orange juice is going up in more ways than one. Concentrate, buying it from the store, it's going to be very expensive. In a very short period of time, we might see the prices skyrocket even further. There. Forgot to type it in the box there. Orange juice, high prices. But, so what do we take from this? 70% of global production oranges comes from Brazil. You know, deforestation is a huge problem in Brazil. Drought and heat waves and fires hitting all around Brazil as well. It's be so much more difficult for a non-native monocrop to survive. You know what I mean? Next story. Panama Island will soon be forced to evacuate amid rising sea levels. On the tiny island off Panama's Caribbean coast, about 300 families are packing their belongings in preparation for a dramatic change. Generations of Gunas have grown up on Gardi Sugdub, and a life dedicated to the sea and tourism will trade that next week for the mainland's solid ground. They go voluntary, sort of. The Gunas of Gardi Sugdub are the first of 63 communities along Panama's Caribbean and Pacific coasts that government officials and scientists expect to be forced to relocate by rising sea levels in the coming decades. On the recent day, the island's indigenous residents rode or sputtered off with outboard motors to fish. Children, some in uniforms and others in colorful local textiles called molas, chattered as they hustled through the warren of narrow dirt streets on their way to school. We're a little sad because we're going to leave behind the homes we've known our whole lives, the relationship with the sea, where we fish, where we bathe, and where the tourists come. But the sea is sinking the island little by little, said Nadine Morales, 24, who prepared to move with her mother, uncle, and boyfriend. Gardi Sugdub is one of 50 populated islands in the archipelago in the Guna Yala territory. It is about 400 yards, 366 meters long, and 150 yards, or 137 meters, wide. It was probably a lot larger before. From above, it's roughly a prickly oval surrounded by dozens of short docks where residents tie up their boats. Every year, especially when the strong winds whip up the sea in November and December, water fills the streets and enters the homes. Climate change isn't only leading to a rise in sea levels, but it's also warming ocean and thereby powering stronger storms. Also, when water warms, it expands. You take cold water and you expand it 10 times or so, and it's going to seem like the water is just coming out of nowhere. That's because of rapid expansion of the molecules inside the stream. Sun warms it up, it gets warm on the streets. Or it falls warm from the sky. lagunas have tried to reinforce the island's edge with rocks, fillings, and coral, but seawater keeps coming. Lately, I've seen that climate change has had a major impact. Now the tide comes to a level it didn't before, and the heat is unbearable. Before I continue, let me take a look at this here. Pull this up. So, there we go. So I believe this is the island right here. People are moving the mainland. It doesn't say that they're moving to another island nearby. That it. Oop. Here we go. Island evacuation. I'm gonna zoom in on the island here. You can see that there is no free space on this island. There is no beach on this island. This is an island that's sinking, where generations called home are now having to leave. You can see that every square meter is covered by homes, businesses, residences, all kinds of things. But the island is just completely filled to its breaking point. Or or was the island a lot more robust, a lot more buffer to the ocean or to the sea? This is from globalnews.canada. He plans to move with relatives to a new site in the mainland the government developed at a cost of $12 million. The concrete houses sit on a grid of paved streets carved out of the lush tropical jungle just over a mile from the port, where an 8-minute boat ride carries them to Gardi Sugdup. Leaving the island is a great challenge because more than 200 years of our culture is from the sea. Leaving the sea, the economic activities that we have there on the island, and now we're going to be on solid ground in the forest. We're going to see what the result is in the long run. Stephen Patton, director of the Smithsonian Institution's Physical Monitoring Program in Panama, said the upcoming move is a direct consequence of climate change through the increase in sea level. One more time. The upcoming move is a direct consequence of climate change through the increase in sea level. The islands on average are only half a meter above sea level, and as that level rises, sooner or later, lagunas are going to have to abandon all of the islands almost surely by the end of the century or earlier. All the world's coasts are being affected by this at different speeds. Residents of a small coastal community in Mexico moved inland last year after storms continued to take away their homes. Governments are being forced to take action, from the Italian lagoon city of Venice to the coastal communities of New Zealand. A recent study by Panama's environmental ministries Climate Change Directorate, with support from universities in Panama and Spain, estimated by 2050, the year 2050, Panama would lose about 2.01% of its coastal territory to increase in sea levels. Panama estimates that it would cost about $1.2 billion to relocate the 38,000 or so inhabitants who will face rising sea levels in the short and medium term. Angari subdubbed, women who make the elaborately embroidered molas worn by Guna women hang outside their home when finished, trying to catch the eye of visiting tourists. The island and others along the coast have benefited for years from year-round tourism. This is an entire culture, way of life that these people are losing. And not only that, but they're moving to these, what they refer to as concrete homes. They're kind of going into the suburbs from living on an island. That is really wild. One of the source, AP News. Panama prepares to evacuate first island in face of rising sea levels. That picture, this looks just like what we were looking at on satellite, even though it's blurry because the resolution isn't very high. You can see the dock. You can see this right here. This dock right here. So, were to go back to the Sentinel Hub, you can see that same dock. So this picture is of this is pointing southwest. Not saying the picture is upside down or anything. It's just the way that the helicopter or drone took a picture, but you can see that in this image. Boats everywhere, and what a shame. I believe this is similar to, yeah, I believe this is the same article that they had on. Yeah, more pictures though. Yeah, but it's the same article. Global reshared it. These are the homes here. You can see that grass will be growing, and they did sort of make a straw hut here. Straw building, straw roof building. All these are concrete roofs. It doesn't look bad, but I'm not the one being forced out due to climate change. Not yet, anyway. This wasn't here in the other article. Laguna's autonomous government decided 2 decades ago that they needed to think about leaving the island, but at that time it was because the island was getting too crowded. It wasn't being crowded, it's that the island is sinking. is all that I have for today. I thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. If you haven't already, please like, stream, subscribe to the channel. It motivates me immensely. But it's tragedy when culture is lost, especially ones that goes back 200 years. May they find peace on the mainland. All right. That's all I have for now. Please take care.